this morning, and that of course follows a very strong day yesterday on the JSE. A little bit of a pullback as we head into the afternoon. Do you think this is just a case of some profit taking and consolidation perhaps?
Yes, I think so. I think the move yesterday was quite aggressive. I think that this morning a lot of people came in to do a bit of short covering. One or two people that also lagging and worrying that they haven't got into the market also started to buy a little bit this morning. And I think there was a little bit of an extra push and a bit of a blow off this morning in prices. And I think a little bit of profit taking has now come in later in the afternoon.
Of course, yesterday we did power above that 30,000 level, so we're up less than 10% off our all-time highs there, Rob. Are you concerned at all about the levels we are reaching on the markets? Do you think the fundamentals back up what we are seeing in equities at this stage?
It's a difficult call. Obviously, we're at very high levels compared to where we were a few months ago. But if with such cheap money available, it's so cheap for these foreigners to lend money overseas and bring money into emerging markets, and so it's difficult to stop the flow of money. And as long as that flow of money is very cheap and coming through, the equities can carry on running.
So do you think it's really foreign money that's propping up the JSE at this stage? Do you think local investors are also finding value still in here? I mean, you did talk about some short covering people having to cover those positions.
I think a lot of it's coming from the carry trade and money flowing into emerging markets. What happens then is that it forces some of the long-term investment managers to, they've got continued annuities flowing in and cash flowing in, and they have to buy the market as well. So I think it's a bit of both. But if we take a look yesterday, just over R1 billion was traded from foreign buyers. So there were net buyers yesterday for R1 billion rands worth of stock. So the foreigners are definitely making an impact in our market, and that carry trade will carry on playing until we start to see a tightening in fiscal and monetary policy.
Well, Rob, looking at yesterday's action and also the action this morning, it really was those resources companies that were pushing the JSE ahead. And of course, we have seen commodity prices picking up with that dollar weakening, so they're really driving it. But I mean, Anglo American, for instance, trading around 313, 314 Rand at this stage, and a few weeks ago, trading down at 260 Rand. So those resources stocks really have you playing catch up.
Yeah, so we had a very strong run from the retailers and also from the banks. We saw some of the retailers hitting all-time highs a few weeks ago. And as that commodity prices started to increase, the laggards like Anglo American and Billiton, Anglo, as you say, was trading around 260. Not a lot of money going into resources at that stage. We started seeing a shift out a little bit from the financials and some of the money coming out of retailers and shifting back into commodities. And then the flow of money from the foreigners seem to be flowing directly into those resource stocks. So those general miners looking really good. We've seen iron ore prices looking relatively firm, and demand from China. We saw the record imports from China, and that's just propping up the commodity prices and the miners generally in South Africa as well.
We also had news out of Singapore this morning that it's actually letting its currency appreciate, and I suppose that also helps the US at this stage.
Yes, I think that they're putting pressure on China to strengthen their currency, and we see now that Singapore now is starting to let its currency strengthen as well. I think it is needed, but at the same time it puts pressure on the dollar. The dollar will weaken and commodity prices will carry on getting firmer. So good for South African equities, especially on the mining side.
Well, of course, we know that the latest dollar weakness really came from that QE2, or the prospects of QE2 following the Fed minutes that came out earlier this week. But we've also seen the markets getting a bit of a boost from US corporate earnings, and they appear to be pretty good at this stage, or at least better than expected.
Yes, last week Thursday was the start of the corporate earnings in America, and people were expecting relatively dismal numbers that were to come out, and the numbers have been very good. The banks, and it's been across the board, banks, industrials, IT companies, all overperforming what people expected, and people realizing that the American market is turning over and there is profit still to be made at a corporate level, and I think that pushed money back into the markets and back into stocks again.
Well, Rob, just given that spurt we've seen in equity prices really since the beginning of September, would you expect the market to perhaps consolidate around these levels for a little while, or do you think we could see another push upwards?
I think we're starting to be stretched at these levels. I think that there will be a lot of people taking profit and selling some of their stocks at these levels. We've had some very good runs, very good percentage increases in portfolios. So I think some money will come off the table. I don't think people will start going short yet, so I do think we'll consolidate. We were trading in a range from about 23,000 on the top 40 to 26,000. That is now broken, and I think that new range is looking like probably at the worst 24,500 to 27,500. So that range has picked up now, and we'll consolidate at a higher level.
Of course, we did have a trading update out of ACI this morning, which looks pretty positive, but the group does warn about the strength of the rand and says if the rand continues strengthening from these levels, it could impact earnings going forward.
Yes, they're looking for an increase of 40% in headline earnings, and that will be to the end of December 2010 this year. But definitely put a warning out there to say if the rand stays at these levels, it will definitely impact that, and they can't give a clear indication depending on where the rand settles for the year. So it just shows you how important that rand is for South African companies and manufacturing especially. Jill Marcus saying that they're very worried about that. Pravin Gordon saying the rand is definitely impacting manufacturing. And we're going to have to see how they can weaken that. It looks like possibly we're going to get another interest rate cut.
But Rob, yeah, I mean, the rand's definitely strengthened significantly against the dollar. But if you look at the rand against the euro, it's been trading around that 950 range for quite some time. And we've seen a slight weakening trend in the rand euro. So if you look at it as on a trade-weighted basis, it doesn't look that bad, does it?
Luckily it doesn't. I think that euro started to pick up against the dollar from its lows of about 117 to the dollar. It's now back at 130, 134. It also hit. Luckily, the dollar is weakening against everybody. And Europe being our biggest trading partner, it's, at least we're not strengthening excessively against Europe. And hopefully that euro starts to stabilize, the eurozone starts to stabilize, and we'll start to see some rand weakness against the euro. That will help our exports.
Of course, we also had Robex out this morning, also with a trading update, voluntary trading update. It says it expects earnings to be 0 to 10% lower. And I should imagine that's not really surprising given what we've seen from other construction companies.
Yes, I think that the order books were very overextended and very big over the construction into the World Cup. I think a lot of those projects have fallen, have finished now. They've still got good and strong order books, but not at the same level as that they were before. I think the strong rand is also hurting them. I think steel prices have also increased quite extensively over the last few months. And going into Zambia, the rand hurts them as well, doing contracts in Zambia as well. So not a great set of results from Robex. They've had a good run, and you probably start to reduce your holdings there.